What's going on, race fans? My name is Alex, and that's Eileen, and you're watching It's Lights Out F1. And today we're talking about the Mexican City Grand Prix. Honestly, I think the whole overall weekend was really, really good. I think it was exciting. I think we see a change.
From the top to the middle to the bottom.
Yeah, I
There's
think
a lot going on.
a lot of things happened in this race. Now, I know probably some people thought it was kind of a boring race. I heard somebody say something. I think my eyes closed for a minute.
Okay,
I'll be honest.
I'm like, you got a lot of nerve. It was a little bit boring, but it was exciting at the end. I just wanted like more overtaking. I'm like, but
I mean, there was a lot of overtaking with blue flags, and
I kind of forgot about Max. I'm like, he's he's like so gone. He's so far in the front. Like, is he here or is he? He's in a different race. But we did have some exciting stuff. It just, this season has literally amped us up to the fact that even exciting races from previous seasons are probably not as exciting as most of the races from 2021.
I mean, this season really is turning out to be one of the best seasons.
Yeah.
Since, I don't know.
Since forever. Oh my God.
Schumacher years.
The new slogan for F1 is #history awaits. So we are thriving off the rivalry with Red Bull, Mercedes, Lewis, and Max. It is week over week exciting. So
that is very true. So let's just start with the weekend. Let's start on Friday. Friday we had our practice 1 and practice 2, and true to form, it seemed to be a Red Bull track.
Yes.
Well, the biggest things that I noticed, very dusty.
Very dusty.
And if you made a mistake anywhere off what was starting to be a racing line, you were going to spin. And we saw a couple of people spin. Mm-hmm. Nothing too major. No real damage. We saw what? We saw
just a couple wings.
It's just a couple wings.
No big deal.
Yeah. So that got us through Friday. And then...
Not to mention Perez was looking really good.
He was looking at home.
Perez was looking at good. Home. We were rallying the Mexican troops. It was looking, it was unbelievable, the energy. So I feel like kind of next level to the Netherlands. I'm like, you can't beat the Orange Army, okay? But
Orange Army, the U.S. Grand Prix, and now we got the Mexico City Grand Prix, all just sold out. Hundreds of thousands of people there. Incredible.
Yeah, 372,000, I think it was.
Crazy.
The U.S. was the biggest one so far, so we do it big here.
We do it big.
We do.
So coming into Saturday practice in the morning, we kind of knew things were kind of panning out for the weekend, that there was going to be quite a few engine penalties. We saw at the end of Friday, I'll come back, we saw Russell with a gearbox issue, and it kind of turned out to be a little bit more than just the gearbox.
No, the pit crews had to really come together in Williams to get his car back in order so that he could participate in qualifying. So, he was taking 5th-place grid penalty.
Yep.
And then it was, at the time on Friday, it was just Stroll and Tsunoda that were taking engine penalties to start at the back of the grid. So then going into Saturday, it was Ocon and then Lando, but it was like this big old thing that we haven't confirmed if he's going to be starting at the back of the grid. Is it just the ice? Is it the whole thing?
Yeah, I don't think anyone knew exactly what they were going to do yet.
Which was funny because the announcers were like, we don't know. We're like reaching out to the FIA, and I'm like, I'm looking at McLaren's Instagram, and they're confirming currently 17 minutes ago.
I mean, that just shows you how fast social media is. I mean, we can get the answers sometimes faster than the announcers because the announcers are not able to go and get on social media. Now they have people that can go and do that and feed it to them.
Of course.
But in some cases, we get some of the information faster.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess that's the world we live in, So going into qualifying.
After free practice 3.
Yeah.
We have to mention free practice 3. So Sergio topped the charts, which was so exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody knows we were going into it like Checo. And so it was amazing to see that. But also, I think the biggest thing that stuck out for me was how far off Mercedes was from Red Bull. And it was like, the comment of the weekend for me was like, Lewis came on the radio and he was like, so how far off are we? And Bono was like, well, currently 6.5 tenths. And he's like, 6.5 tenths. And we were like, whoa.
Yeah. And I don't know, is that just a game? You
Right.
know, tactics. You know,
You never know.
my opinion, yes.
Yeah. Well, going into qualifying.
Yeah.
duh.
So let's get into qualifying. So Q1 in qualifying, the biggest thing, honestly, was the red flag from Stroll. Stroll took a wide out of the last turn, which was definitely off the racing line, and it was pretty dusty out there, and I don't think he had good traction, and car slid, and impacted pretty hard.
Yeah, it did a spin, hit both the front and the back end. So
Yeah.
pretty
Took the car out.
tough. Yeah. Which we didn't see it at first. We had to wait for the replay. So good thing is okay. But for me, I was like, why is he even going for it? You know, considering he was taking an engine penalty. But all things considered, there was so many cars that were going to be starting from the back of the grid. It was important for him to be able to be up there fighting for it with better, you know, grid position. So,
Sure.
But yeah, definitely tough to see. So that kind of put a stop to it. Everyone was like out on the track, I think, at that point, like either going for their fast laps or getting ready to. So, you know, that was tough to see. But not a whole lot happened in Q1 other than Alonso got kicked out, which with the engine penalties, we saw a lot of teamwork going on with McLaren, AlphaTauri, Alpine. So a lot of towage, a lot of towing.
Yeah, and then I don't know if something happened to Red Bull in Q3 then going into qualifying, because the biggest thing that I also noticed was
In practice 3? Yeah.
Or I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Coming out of practice 3 going into qualifying was those wings.
Yeah.
So you told me that Checo said that they took his wing, gave it to Max, gave Max's wing to Checo.
Yeah, I was reading the reviews this morning before the race, and so Checo in his Sky Sports interview had said they were having, which we knew at the time, they were having issues with the wings, and which, I mean, in their race, like their pace, you really wouldn't have thought because they still were doing so good. But he had said the car didn't feel as it had before qualifying after they had changed the wing. So they had given his wing to Max, and it just didn't feel right. So
yeah, they were literally gluing and duct taping.
Yeah, gluing and duct taping, and they got Christian on during qualifying, and they were like, "Well, what's going on in the garage? We see a lot of activity with the wings," and he was like, "It's just precautionary." So I'm like, "Well, I mean, it sounds about right because they're still killing it." So
again, tactics.
yeah, so who knows? But we did see at one point that Max's wing was duct taped on, one side. There was, I think they were talking about the DRS being exposed, and it just sounded like some issues, but.
Yeah, the cables were exposed a little bit more than a lot of the other cars.
Yeah. I know we don't want to, say anything too crazy, but I mean, for me, I'm like, Red Bull, we've seen them do numbers with duct tape. We've seen them this year with Hungary for Max's barge board to fix it with duct tape so he can still survive and actually end in the points. So, duct tape, if you're out there, you should sponsor Red Bull. Just saying. Sometimes I have good ideas.
On a side note, I did hear that Red Bull has been reached out by a bunch of companies for sponsorship. They mentioned that today.
Yeah, moving into this weekend.
Yeah, because I think, the American market, again, from last weekend or 2 weeks ago.
Well, we know, too, was it last weekend or the weekend before? They told Max that they did a survey, and he's the most popular driver that there is right now. Yeah. He was like, it was with Danny when they were doing their Thursday press conference, and he's like, "Oh man, my life is made. I can retire now." And Ricardo was like, "Well, they only interviewed 12 people, but we'll say 13 with me." So,
so back to qualifying. So Q1 red flag. Nothing out of the normal other than that. Some people got through. Yuki Tsunoda got through, which was pretty good. That was a good time. Then let's just go talk about Q3, the last round, because that was probably the most intense.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, it was the most important one. So they came on out, the shortest time period. So it was like, typically you only get 1 to 2 laps in. And so the first lap was everybody's good lap. So, going in, everybody, like I said already, everybody was towing each other. So Tsunoda was there to tow Gasly. Norris was there to tow Ricciardo.
Yep.
One would think that Valtteri was there to tow Lewis, but as we all know, it didn't work out in that favor.
Valtteri did not need a tow, apparently.
Valtteri did not need a tow this weekend for pole position.
Yeah.
Can we just say that? So, but yeah, no, it was the first lap. I mean, we're watching, and it's like at that point, Checo was first to cross the line. I mean, he goes on to provisional pole where like the crowd goes wild. Ole, ole. So, it's super exciting. And then Max came through, and he was obviously quicker. And then Valtteri was just purple sector, and then came in and was in the 115s.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Which he was the only driver to go into the 115s.
Yeah, you're right. Hamilton was a
116, almost flat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So pretty exciting. And then they all came into the garage. I feel like that's when we saw the duct tape wings was in between that. And we were like, oh my God, what's going on? Keep in mind, Red Bull's still quick as hell, but, then they all go back out, pushing it to the limit. There's only a little bit of time left, and Red Bull's out first. Mercedes is going to be the last ones pulling it in, and I guess we'll talk about those Red Bull laps.
Yeah.
So Yuki was there to tow Gasly. Gasly got a good lap in.
Yep.
Yuki was on his cool-down lap, and basically his engineer told him that, both Perez and Max were coming up pretty quick. So his engineer had a choice word. I think he realized, we're not in the best position right now.
Yeah.
Probably not a good idea.
Said, get the hell out of the way, and tried to as best as he could, because Perez was right there coming, and it was the start of a high-speed area coming into the back straight for the DRS on the back straight. And, I probably would have gotten distracted, too, in that car, seeing some dust come up.
Yeah, so Yuki went off the track. Yuki decided, okay, I'm going to just get off the track altogether.
Get out of the way, and it kind of, I think it threw Perez, and he bailed, and he ended up going across the grass and then trying to slow down. And at that same time, Max is getting the tow and coming in, and saw two cars, one with, dust flying everywhere. And, with the new rule this year with the double yellow flag means whatever qualifying time that you have, if you're in that sector, it gets taken away no matter what. So I think you can kind of assume that, if you watch his onboard, how much did he lift? Probably not a whole lot, but you just do this, just the hesitation. That's 1/10.
I know,
maybe 2/10. You know what I mean?
It's really hard to tell because you would all weekend practice qualifying. Mercedes would be the quickest in the first sector because it's the straight, and then it would be they'd be up maybe 1/10, and then the end of sector 2, Mercedes would be down 2/10 or 3/10 in some cases. So you just expected Red Bull to pick it back up. But so Max let off a little bit and then realized he could keep going. So he kept going, tried to push. But then he locked up in sector 3 moving into that last turn. And it just wasn't a good lap for him at the end. So he ended up, it was Bottas, Hamilton locking out the front row, and then Red Bull locking out the second row. So Max, Perez. And so it was pretty interesting qualifying. Max wasn't happy. Actually, everybody in the Red Bull camp wasn't happy. So everybody had choice words to say about Yuki getting in the way.
Whatever. And at the end of the day, honestly,
everything happens for a reason.
It does. And honestly, we saw Mercedes 1 and 2. It's the first time this year they did the lockout.
Yeah, they actually broke the record. Ferrari had 80 front row lockouts, and so now Mercedes has 81. Front row lockouts. So they, of course, every time I watch anything sports,
I know
there's some type of record being broken. So
it is. It's we're in the future, and so every time there's a new game, it's the future. So
there was several records broken today. So
so we saw a Mercedes front row, a Red Bull second row. And honestly, I think I kind of mentioned it right away too, was, that second row is probably going to be a better position to be in. If you watch some of the older races from the last few years, obviously there wasn't a race last year, but if you watch 19, 18, and 17, you see the front two giving the tow to the second two, and if you're on the racing line, which is honestly it's position 2 and 3, or it's 1 and 3.
1 and 3,
and 3 are on the actual racing line, and so Max had the best position.
Yeah, he wasn't happy, but it definitely worked to his advantage today.
It definitely did.
We were like, is Bottas going to break the curse? Nobody's ever won the Mexican Grand Prix from pole position, ever. So, Lewis and Max going into this weekend both only had 2 wins. So, and that's the most that anybody's ever won. It's been like 5 or 6 racers that have won 2 GPs there. But, so it was like, is Valtteri is he going to come away with it? But, yeah. So let's move on into the race.
So on start of the race, lights out.
Pretty good start. I feel
Really
like
good
for
start.
everybody.
We saw exactly what would happen. There was a slight slipstream that Max was able to exploit off of Valtteri, and then they kind of went 3 wide going into turn 1, and then we see Valtteri braking first.
Yeah.
Lewis kind of skating by them, but then we see Max almost not braking. You asked me, did Max even brake? Well, of course he broke.
Of course he did, but I was like, did he even brake? That was smooth.
Yeah, it was. Smooth. He had the tires, the temp, brake the temp, and
he was aggressive, and he had the right move. So
had the right line, and it was perfect.
Yeah, no, it was good.
Skated right into first place. Took the lead, pretty much owned the lead right from then on. Although we did have a yellow flag, we had a little
kerfuffle,
as
they would say.
So as Valtteri braked early,
there was a lot going on behind the three.
Because of the slipstream, there was a lot.
Yeah, because even when we rewatched it, sorry to cut you off, but when we rewatched it, it was interesting because it was like, the 2 Mercedes and then it was Max coming up on the outside, and you saw Perez trying to just find a spot to slip into, but he couldn't find it. But then I was like, oh man, Ricardo's like right there coming up, and he had a big lockup. And so because Bottas braked so early.
Yep. And
early.
And Daniel being one of the latest
He's a late breaker.
The latest of the late breakers, kind of slid right in and hit Bottas and spun Bottas around. And
it's crazy too, because
then Bottas his race was done.
Yeah, when you watch the replay, unfortunately, so was Ricardo's, but when you watch the replay, he really just tapped him. Like it wasn't like he hit him hard. He just a little tap.
Well, it was enough to set those back tires just off of the grip. As probably
and
Perez as Bottas was putting the gas down, and you saw tire smoke, those wheels spin, and the car go around.
I know,
and it was just because he was laying down that pedal, that foot, putting the foot on the gas.
Yeah, crazy. So just a couple of things about the opening lap though too, because I thought it, but I didn't say it, and I was like, maybe I'm just crazy. I don't know. I don't know a whole lot. I just know what I know, but I'm like, did Bottas brake that way to let Lewis get the opening advantage?
I mean, there has been talk about that, and it's possible. Now, if he was to really do that, he was leaving himself vulnerable with Max as well, because if he was going to let Lewis by, sure enough, Max was going to go by. And so look what happened. So if he really did that on purpose, then, I don't know. I don't know if he did it on purpose. I think he was the first one on the grid. He had to stop there and wait for everybody else to line up on the grid. And we saw...
I forgot how long that took.
It took a very long time.
Yeah.
I think he was just a little worried that his tires and brakes weren't up to proper temp for that first turn. And so he braked sooner. He braked first.
Yeah, no. And then I'm like, the other big thing was, and Lewis came on the radio and was asking about it, but Toto in his post-race interview wasn't very happy with Bottas leaving that opening gap for Max to have the racing line.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure there's a lot of discussions and, post race, but I mean, Max, he went for it, and he was fast. He was fast.
Yeah. So, lap 1, turn 1, some people got through, some carnage. We saw Yuki Tsunoda kind of get beached a little bit.
Yeah.
We saw...
it was Ocon hit him and Mick's wheel fell off.
Mick kind of went in the air a little bit and I think went over a tire. broke his rear tire and then kind of just went off. And so we had a couple cars out on lap one.
That was the big part.
Double yellow flag.
Yeah, that was the big part of the yellow flag was that Yuki was stuck on the sausage curb.
Yeah.
So
that and he had some broken stuff and they weren't moving any of those cars. So safety car came out. That took, I don't know,
like 4 or 5 laps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we kind of came back around for the restart, and
we were like, Lewis has a chance. You were like, Lewis has a chance to do something right here.
He does.
Then Max was like,
see ya. Yeah, just really timed it really well. I think, there is a knack to when you want to go.
Yeah. Well, when you're in control.
And you have the control. You have, the time. So he timed it right, got the perfect distance, and never really looked back.
Man. Lewis was like, he's quick. And he was quick. I'm like, is he this fast or is something going on? And I'm like, he's fast.
The car was dialed in for today's race. So, he pretty much led. I'm not going to say every lap because he did not lead every lap. He had a pit, and him pitting caused.
And Perez being the tire king, he stayed out.
I think Lewis was in the lead then, right? Because Lewis was number 2, so Lewis was in the lead for a moment, and then Lewis had a pit. Right? Or did Lewis pit first?
Lewis was never leading the race.
Lewis pit first.
Yeah, Lewis pit first, then Max followed suit, and then Perez, being the tire king, was like, I'm going long.
Yep, and led a few laps. I don't know exactly how many.
I think he really only led the 1 lap, but it was 1 lap enough for us. Okay?
I think it was more than 1. I think it was 2 or 3 laps.
I don't know if it was that many. Because with Hamilton,
maybe one of you guys can tell us.
Yeah, when Hamilton had pitted, it was like, oh, you're this many seconds safe. You're this many seconds safe.
Yeah.
And because it was like a decent gap because Perez was staying long. But yeah, so he didn't lead every lap. He led most of the laps by a significant margin. What a race by Max. Yeah. He was fast, and not just him. Red Bull was fast.
Red Bull was fast. Sergio staying out that little bit longer gave him better tire life at the end of the race. And honestly, it
was 11 laps. So he had 11 lap fresher, newer tires than Lewis did.
Yeah.
So.
And honestly, the middle of the race for me was kind of boring. It was Max kind of just in the lead. They weren't even showing Max much.
I know.
They were showing more of the battles. Honestly, it was Ricciardo and Bottas.
Together forever.
Together, going from the back, making their way through the midfield. They did an okay job.
They did an all right job.
Yeah.
Ricciardo bumped Bottas out at pole position at the beginning, and then he was stuck behind him the whole race. So bummer for Bottas.
Yeah.
Bottas had an 11-second pit stop. His tire was stuck on. His brakes caught on fire. This guy cannot catch a break, all right? Because it broke my heart when he spun around at the beginning of the race. I'm like, I was kind of geeked up that, he's going to have a good race. Might not finish first. Didn't expect him to finish first, but I expected him to have a good race. And so definitely a bummer to see that. But, yeah, not a whole lot happened. There was a little bit of Ferrari, like, let's change positions.
Yeah.
We saw that. I think Leclerc ended up finishing ahead of Sainz, even though they switched twice at the end there.
They did.
Norris was on the charge. And then, of course, we always got to talk about the 40-plus-year-old guys that were together in the midfield. So we had Raikkonen, we had Vettel, we had Alonso. And they, have a combined age of 120. So we just need to throw that out there.
Yeah. So, we're getting near the end of the race, and Perez makes his stop for his last tire set.
Uh-huh.
Comes out behind Lewis. About 8 seconds, somewhere in there.
I think it was like 8 seconds.
I think it was 8 seconds. And just started on a charge.
Yeah.
And
at that point, it was like lap 35, 36, and I was like, they should just pit Lewis again.
I think Perez honestly made 2 laps, maybe 1 lap, and then you said that, and you were really adamant about they should pit Lewis now, and then he would have the ability to go on the charge against Perez, and which was probably maybe true, but maybe not. I don't know. They know they have all the info to see the pace of the cars, and we don't. So they see other things. And then you heard me say what they're gonna do is they're gonna pit Bottas for fastest lap.
See, my thought process was like, let's just pit Lewis they've got the gap for whatever, Gasly. And I was like, Perez is going to catch Lewis because, I mean, it was like at one lap, 1.2 seconds faster, half a second, 0.6, it was, I mean, he was
taking chunks out
quickly. He was
quickly.
flying. So I'm like, I mean, I don't know, like maybe I should have had more faith or whatever, but I was like, okay, well, he can get fastest lap. If Perez is going to end up passing him, then that's the strategy, whatever. But
take third and fastest lap.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad strategy.
But he would have got less points. So, but for me, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. But it obviously ended up being, down to the last lap between the two of them, which, that was the exciting portion of it. But
yeah, we saw Lewis. We saw them getting within under a second.
Yeah.
Perez had DRS multiple laps, and getting really within striking distance. But we were kind of we were getting some back markers kind of coming up on Lewis, and we saw Lewis' car overheating. He was complaining of tires and brakes overheating, engine overheating, and his engineer telling him to do lift and coast at turns. So it was
such a crazy, it was so crazy with like the Perez and Lewis because Max was so gone that it was like the battle was on between Perez and Hamilton. Yeah. And it was like, we're so used to Hamilton being like, oh, my tire's this and my tire's that. And then he's pumping out fast laps. But this Perez gets on the radio multiple times this race.
30
multiple times. Tires are getting better. Tires are getting better.
Tires are better.
His engineer at one point was like, tires are good. Like brakes are good. And Checo gets on like just jokingly like, is the engine good? And we're like, wow, he is comfortable. And so, yeah, it was a Red Bull weekend. I mean, they had the pace. They were fast. Checo at first was striking distance was going to be super difficult within 18 laps. And then it went down to like, in 5 laps, striking distance was like less than medium difficulty. And so, I mean, he was catching quick, but Lewis held him off. And I think it was like 1 second in between them when they finished. But
yeah, you're right. So Max won the race. I think he lapped everybody up to
P4.
P4. So
yes.
So there was a lot of back markers.
Yes.
So pretty impressive win by Max. Well deserved. And then Lewis was able to hold off Perez. Perez did make that final charge on that last lap, and the crowd was going crazy for the last 10 laps easily. Every time they were coming into the stadium, they were on their feet.
And Perez said that he was like, I could hear them every time I came through here. I mean,
I believe it.
Yeah.
With a stadium style like that I'm all yelling, for sure. So that kind of ended the race. Max won, Lewis 2, Perez 3.
Bottas fastest lap. It took 2 pit stops to get it.
Yeah.
Because he was going for it and was in Max's way. And Max was like, he needs to get out of my way. He's not going fast enough, I feel like he had said. And so then they had to pit him again and hold him up.
Yeah, just to hold him up.
Just to get him like the right position to be able to get it. And, I mean, he secured it. So that 1 point is crucial because the difference in the Constructors' Cup is 1 point. It's pretty crazy.
It is crazy. So Constructor Cup, 1 point, like you said.
Yeah, 1 point.
Max has a
19 points.
Which is still not, he could DNF and Matt and Lewis win first, and then Lewis is in the lead again.
Well, we have the sprint race next weekend. So it's a triple header. So this is the first race of 3. So we have the sprint race in Brazil, and I mean, I'm not going to jinx it, but the sprint race weekends have been a little crazy for us, okay, between the two of them. So let's just hope for a clean, good race weekend next weekend. So everybody say your prayers. Yeah. But, so it's 19 points right now. Max is looking good. I mean, he was looking good in the U.S. He was looking good here. So, but, Lewis isn't going to go down without a fight. But, 19 points for them, 1 point between Mercedes and Red Bull, which is wild. That is wild.
But not only that, it's like
Ferraris.
If you look at this Constructors' Cup down between. So we also saw Ferrari take third.
Yep, they moved into the third position because Norris only got 1 point and Ricciardo didn't get any.
Yeah.
So they're now leading in P3. And then
AlphaTauri and
P5 and P6
are tied.
Is Alpine and AlphaTauri, and they're at 106 points tied exactly.
It's crazy.
So we got 5 races left, and there is going to be a lot of movement with all the teams. We tend to focus on the top, but like every dollar counts for these teams. Going into a new season with a new car and all the other stuff that's going to be happening, I'm like, this is really important. So.
So, yeah, Mercedes by 1 point. See, now this Ferrari half point, it's going to be crucial because McLaren doesn't have a half of a point. And the half point is going to do it, you know.
They kill me.
So that pretty much sums up this whole weekend.
Driver of the day?
So F1's driver of the day was Checo. Your driver of the day?
I feel like Checo's our driver of the day every weekend.
I don't know, yeah. I'm going with F1. He was my driver.
I'm going with Checo, too.
Yeah, so all 3 of us all like Checo.
It was, okay, so the best way to put this race weekend is, oh, my God, I was in my feels after the race. I'm like, yes, Checo was P3. It was the first time for a Mexican driver to be on the podium at their home race. Checo's never finished above P7. And I don't know. I remember last season being like, I can't believe he doesn't have a seat. And I was like, my mind was like blown that nobody had signed him last year until like Red Bull finally announced it. And it felt like a race win for me for Checo, even though he was P3. What a race.
Yeah, he was home. He got lifted on his shoulders from his teammates.
His family was there. His dad was there. His son was in his post-race interview. It was the cutest thing ever. Yep. And honestly, the same way I said last week with Lewis on the charge for Max at the end of the U.S. Grand Prix, I think maybe 1 or 2 more laps, he would have had Lewis.
Probably.
I mean, he was quick.
Yep.
He was quick, and he is a good driver.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I would agree. Probably 2 more laps, he would have had second.
Yeah.
So next week, São Paulo, Brazil.
Brazil.
4 races left.
That's so crazy.
Season's almost over. I feel like the season started not too long ago, but it's these 11 months, 10 months.
I know.
Have flown by.
They sure have.
I want to say, I guess, as we wrap this up, thanks for watching. Some of you have subscribed. We have a few.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions, comments, anything like that, we'll take them. We'll try to answer things that we can. And this is the start of a triple header, so you'll see us next weekend, the weekend after, and then we'll have the final race. So thanks for watching. I'm Alex. That's Eileen. And
we'll see you next time.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.